Hello, my name is Chris Cruz, and today is the final chapter of this semester. Uh, and this week's chapter is about deceptive communication, which is a really interesting topic because it really is something that's very uh, relevant to today's world and how it's used to be manipulating people into believing certain things. Um, but it's also used to a way to avoid conflict, to protect people's feelings, or managing people's impressions of others. Uh, there's three kinds of deception. There's flat out lying to somebody, leaving out important information, and also being purposely unclear about a certain topic. Um, I feel like these categories are pretty. Um, they sound similar and they kind of seem like they are, but realistically, they each have their own place in deception, which is very true. Uh, Deception isn't really a way of people lying. It's a way into adjusting people's behavior. Like I said earlier, it's also a way to purposely have people side with you with a certain thing, like leaving out important information. A lot of politicians do that when it comes to their um, their rallies. They really emphasize in turning the country into a better place, and the deception is that they really left out the more important steps in reaching that goal, if that makes sense. uh, People argue that there is no perfect science of lying, but there is changes in deception in terms of how someone talks. If they seem nervous, if they seem carefully picking certain words and vocabulary to explain people's about their plans or overall just communication. Uh, and another thing is that deception is used a lot in online. I used to watch this show called Catfish. This show was really basically about catching people who were deceiving others with creating a false image of somebody that who wasn't them. So, and it would get to the point where sometimes it would get really bad, where people would really mess with people's mental health, ask for money, leave them on a spiral of emotional roller coasters, and all for that for just a simple bit of attention and just pleasure of deception, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, and another thing that is really, I think, is kind of personal is that when um, when our president now brought up the fact that lots of criminals are in the United States and undocumented. He stated that a lot of them would be deported if they have violent criminals and have done nothing but led the country into a bad spot. A lot of people were in that deception of believing that what he was telling was going to happen. Now you're seeing cases like where a lot of people are being ripped apart from their families. People who have never even committed a parking ticket are being deported over the color of their skin, or not, or overall not speaking Spanish. I mean, speaking English. Um, and that really brought a sense of deception because it was a flat out. I would say it was kind of a lie, or not even a lie. I feel like he just left out important information in terms of how he was gonna quote unquote handle it, and it really brought a bad taste in a lot of people's minds because he really deceived them in terms of how he was gonna handle deporting quote unquote criminals, but really he's really deporting innocent people who have done nothing but you know done their goods and work every day, and it's not even just Hispanics. It's overall other immigrants who are in this country who have done nothing wrong, and it's just overall, I think it's unfair and just it leaves a really bad negative output in terms of how deception can be used to manipulate millions upon millions of people, and that's really sad. And that's the power of deception, which really brought me in kind of a spook, because it's crazy how people can do that and get away with it, especially. Um, but this helps you go to my question, is like, how can we use everyday deception, like posting perfect versions of ourselves, become helpful rather than harmful? Because everyone wants to have a perfect life, but realistically, we gotta understand that life is life, and that you're gonna have hardships, and it's really how you get back up is what's more important. So, thank you.